Hello, a happy Eid to you and our Muslim brothers here in Ghana and across the globe. My name is Emefa Akosiaditi and you're welcome to Joy News Desk. You can catch us live on GoTV channel 125 and DSTV channel 421 and all of our digital platforms, including myjoyonline.com. This is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Coming up this morning, Acting Administrator of the Minerals Development Fund, MDF, Dr. Bisu, formally petitioned the Interior Ministry to take decisive action against the District Police Command in Akomfre, Ashanti region, for allegedly shielding illegal Chinese miners.
And we want these excavators auctioned. We want the money to be channeled through, the reclamation of the land and the restoration of Ofori River.
We have the full details, plus tell you how a task force from the Minerals Development Fund was held hostage by thugs. And as well in the bulletin, it's official. Former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta declared wanted as Interpol publishes a red notice for his arrest, accusing him of using public funds for profit. And of course, it's al-Adha today. We'll be crossing over to join our Muslim brothers at the Independence Square for their national prayers later in the bulletin. It's quite packed and you want to stay with us for all of the details. Please stay. Welcome back, and we'll start with the Acting Administrator of the Minerals Development Fund, MDF, Dr. Hannah Bisu, who has formally petitioned the Interior Minister to investigate the conduct of the Akomfre District Police Command. She alleges that officers from the command demanded the release of illegal Chinese miners who had been arrested by an MDF task force on suspicion of engaging in illegal mining. According to Dr. Bisu, her team, accompanied by journalists, was held hostage by armed thugs in the mining communities for hours, where they discovered over 24 excavators actively involved in illegal mining. She says she was stunned when district police officers ordered the release of the suspects her task force had arrested. This came up in an interview with my colleague Elton Broby on the Pulse yesterday.
Right. We managed to push through, finally, through a lot of struggle and hustle. Then we got to Inahinin police station. Then the police asked them to block us again, these same facts, to divert us and direct us to release the Chinese to them. That place, I really got upset, because with everything we went through in the village, it was between life and death issue, where you've been held basically hostage under gunshots because you've arrested these Chinese who have committed such crime against humanity, crime against our water bodies, crime against our forests, crime against our nation. Then we manage to pull through. We get here, then you bring them to block us again with wielding guns and stuff. So I came out and I said, look, enough of this. So I told the police commander that we are not living even a pin with you, because it happened in your jurisdiction and it's just around the corner. Last time we were here, they escaped. Today we've come for them. Right.
Well, still on this matter, Dr. Hannah Bisu has formally petitioned the Interior Ministry to take swift action against the District Police Command and ensure the enforcement of environmental laws. Well, we'll wait to see how this unfolds. I'm also actually joined by the convener of the Media Coalition Against Galamsey, Dr. Ken Ashigbe, for some thoughts on this. Doc, thank you for joining us and a happy holiday to you. First of all, let's start. How does all of this development come to you?
Well, for some of us, and as much as it's disappointing, repugnant, unacceptable, it's not surprising. We have been talking about the fact that the fight against Galamsey had moved from an ecological disaster, an ecocide, a genocide, the economic impact of this country, the environmental impact on us, to a national security challenge. When we talk about the fact that there was a need for a state of emergency, when we talk of the fact that there are mercenaries that have been brought into this country, when the Forestry Commission told us that 9 of the forest reserves were now red and they could not go in there because of these thugs who were armed to the teeth, people did not believe it. Now you have the situation where police officers, in the presence of a national, administrator of the Memphis, is attacked like this, held hostage, for hours under the watch or under the command of a police commander who should already, I don't know whether he's not one of those who have been transferred or whether he's just been brought in and now he's supervising this particular activity. You sit in a community where illegality is happening. You completely fail. It's either that the police commander in that district is complicit, incompetent, and cannot do his job, and for that part to be dismissed. It's complicit that he's involved in this illegality. Because how is it that you see these things happening and you're not able to deal with it?
Right.
And then you have, and Abisu now come into the place and then get with police people, you see in uniform, and then you ask them to release the person who is committing a crime. So it is really, really repugnant. And how come is like this police commander, all the officers and I am, should be under arrest. They should be immediately arrested. There are several crimes that have been committed. The torment, the torture that Anna has gone through with the journalists who and all of that, are all issues that we should be dealing with. This is why we call on the National Security Advisor to really advise them to declare state of emergency. These communities of people, look at weapons that they carry. Where are they have licenses for these weapons? You have a situation where a whole fuel station is in that community. The MPA, did they go there to inspect? The EPA, did they inspect that? Definitely we should be able to follow the trail of all the tankers that have been going there.
Yes.
The CCTV.
Doc, if you can hear me, quite recent, the Transport Ministry just released that, we're prohibiting the importation of excavators. Now, in that same release, it says that though they are prohibiting it, if you have permits, you can import it. I'm trying to find the line between the prohibition and as well also allowing people to still import the excavators. What do you make of that release?
The challenge is that currently as a country, we have more excavators in Ghana than the whole of Africa. What are we building in this country that would need excavators? It is because we have become a very attractive place of illegality, to the extent that before this current Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, were advertising the sale of excavators. To do what? To do what? If you look at the large-scale miners, all their earth-moving equipment are all tracked, and they can be accounted for. All of these excavators, they are the ones that exacerbate our guarantee. So I would ask that the president we have more excavators than we need. We should start even exporting excavators. So those excavators that are on the over 3,000 that are expected to be coming to this, we should reduce them. And those 120 that are in the port, we should not allow them to be cleared. We should export them out of this country. We should immediately, as the Minerals Commission has done a great job with human, so immediately let's make sure that the tracking of excavators starts and give a moratorium. In the next 1 month, if you don't get your excavator tracked, then once we take it, we see it, it falls under excavators that have sinned against Act 95. And it should be confiscated, you're taken to court.
Right.
And, if you're on, just forget it.
Right. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us this morning on a holiday. And you're watching Joy News Desk. We're taking you live to the National Anti-Corruption Conference. And the special guest of honor, of course, is the Vice President, Her Excellency Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, with the theme Revitalizing the Anti-Corruption Architecture in Africa, Ghana's Accountability Journey, where the Special Prosecutor is currently speaking.
In our lands into possessions of the English crown. Indeed, the anti-colonial organization formed by our people, Aborigines Rights Protection Society, sent a delegation from our then Gold Coast to London to drive home a point with success. Our argument was simple. There are no ownerless lands here. Every inch of our land is tied in with the soul, culture, and religion of our people. Therefore, our land could not be held to be anyone's possessions. If you desired a parcel of land, you negotiated for it. If the colonial government acquired land, it ought to pay compensation to the owners. Thus, the principle was firmly established at Westminster that in our then Gold Coast, native law will remain and prevail with regard to the devolution of land. Upon this fight and push, we saved ourselves the calamity that befell some of our African brethren, whereby their ancestral and heritage lands were ceded off to colonialists and foreigners. We kept the torch up so our lighters would not dim. And so in 1948, our outright repudiation of high-handed and unaccountable governance and grand corruption through boycotts of European and Asian goods and a 5-day countrywide rout following the clearly unjustifiable and inexcusable killing of peaceful protesting ex-servicemen by a white police superintendent, forcefully imprinted on the minds of the colonialists that our then Gold Coast, which had been touted as a model colony, was slipping away irreversibly. The Watson Commission, which inquired into the 1948 occurrences in our then Gold Coast, observed that we are convinced that there's a widespread and rapidly growing feeling among the people that they are being governed without their consent and in a manner which makes them feel that the government is not their own. Unless prompt and bold action is taken, the present system of government cannot continue. The Gold Coast had slipped away. This was how we heralded our independence from colonial rule. We are set on our 4th republic now, and may this be our last. The Republican periods have been dot-marked by 5 successful military coups d'etat. It may well be that the fight against corruption has been a popular go-to rubric, either to get one elected or to enable one to seize power, as our history has shown. And though our efforts seem like disappearing acts, we have ever so much sought to make things work, and the refrain of the fight against corruption has underlined every government that has governed us. Indeed, the last 4 election cycles were battled out on the fight against corruption. And so, Your Excellency, it came to pass that we constituted about 50 corruption-related commissions of inquiry to stamp our opprobrium against corruption. Permit me to tell in quotes from the conclusions of some of these inquiries. The Cowgirl Commission, which investigated corruption in respect of the cocoa purchasing company, remarked in its report in 1959 that, quote, there are disturbing indications of corruption among some public officers. This was in 59, unquote. Then came the Enin Commission report in 1970 in respect of an inquiry into bribery and corruption in Ghana, and it opined, quote, bribery and corruption are widespread in Ghanaian society, manifesting in various forms such as kickbacks, under-the-table payments, and other illicit financial transactions aimed at influencing decisions or securing favors, unquote. This was in 1970. Then the military adventurers also jumped on the train and refrained. They all sought to justify their forceful takeover of government by pointing to corruption in the administration they wrestled power from. Here, General Ankara, one of the main architects of the overthrow of Nkrumah in 1966, he said, we have been called upon to rescue the nation from the tyranny and corrupt practices of the past administration, unquote. A few days later, the National Liberation Council stated on the radio, quote, we want to establish a government based on honesty, transparency, and integrity, values which had been eroded by Nkrumah's corrupt one-party dictatorship. This was in 1966. Then on 13 January 1972, when the champion overthrew the Buzia regime, he addressed us that, quote, there is a growing gap between the rulers and the ruled, fueled by greed, favoritism, and corruption. This was 72. Then General Ekufu, who staged the palace coup a few weeks after I was born, in 1978, by sacking a champion, declared that, quote, there is a deliberate and cynical disregard for accountability in the use of public resources by some officials, unquote. This was in 1978. On his second military adventure on New Year's Eve 1981, Rawlins, upon overthrowing the Liman government, lamented, during the Liman administration, serious allegations of corruption against top functionaries and party intrigue, even in parliament, became a matter of idle gossip. Among the big men, it was even possible to arrive at settlements, sometimes judicially sanctioned, of these affairs. The wealth of the nation was merely the playground of its leaders, unquote. This was in March 1982. Then we adopted our present constitution into force in 1993, in which we proudly declared the principle of probity and accountability built on a complex system of checks and balances. On the international scene, we ratified the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, ANCAC, on 24 June 2007, and the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption around the same time. Under the Constitution, we established the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, and tried to clothe it with anti-corruption mandates under Article 218E of the Constitution. We then created the Serious Fraud Office, which we rechristened the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, to tackle economic crimes with a sidewind criminal anti-corruption mandate. 20 years after running this model, it became clear that the SHRAJ anti-corruption model was impractical and it was not working. This is because SHRAJ's real intended purpose, as the National Human Rights Commission and the Ombudsman, rendered it unsuitable to fight corruption in the real sense, and the Article 218E mandate was clearly a stopgap measure for a much more robust and concrete future anti-corruption regime. Further, it saddled SHRAJ with dilapidating inundation, as it lacked any real power in the anti-corruption space, as its mandate does not involve any sanctions. This is because it is required merely to circuitously forward the outcome of its anti-corruption investigations to the Attorney General and the Auditor General. The EOCO setup was also not optimal. This was mainly because EOCO is an agency under the Attorney General's department and is invariably able only to institute criminal proceedings on the say-so of the Attorney General. This rendered it incapable of tackling corruption, especially regarding political actors and politically exposed persons. The need for an independent institution with an effective and all-encompassing anti-corruption mandate became increasingly pronounced, especially during the institution of the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, NACAP, in 2014. The underlying philosophy of the NACAP is the recommendation of the establishment of an independent prosecution authority to effectively tackle corruption. The thinking was that the Attorney General, being a member of cabinet and the chief legal advisor to the government, is not well suited to investigate and prosecute members of a government to which he belonged. There is still immense force in this thinking, Your Excellency. This was the chief consideration that informed the passage of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959, which established the Office of the Special Prosecutor in 2018 as a flagship anti-corruption institution of the Republic with a unique fourfold mandate of investigating corruption and corruption-related cases, prosecuting suspected offenders, recovering and managing assets, and taking steps to prevent corruption. Intended as fulfillment of a campaign promise during the 2016 presidential election process, the OSP is actually the satisfaction of Ghana's treaty obligations under Articles 6 and 36 of ANCAC that requires state parties to establish independent specialized authorities to combat corruption through law enforcement, and Article 5.3 of the African Union Convention. Its outlook is also intended as founded on the Jakarta Statement on Principles for Anti-Corruption Agencies pronounced in November 2012 by parties to ANCAC. Your Excellency, the OSP model represents our best bet in tackling corruption. And upon this architecture, it is a unique and never-before-seen remedy designed as a cure of the inadequacies of the traditional methods we had previously adopted, which are characterized by the lack of real legal and enforcement powers and independence of action, as the model retains total control over the initiation of the conduct of investigations and the institution of criminal proceedings. Then again, the model affords political neutrality and non-selectiveness in the fight against corruption. For the first time in our history, the OSP model forcefully carries the fight against corruption not only in the province of public officers and public life, but also among politically exposed persons and persons in the private sector. The model is not without its shortcomings, as is suffered by every human construct. Yet we have a golden opportunity to, once again, retool and reshape it to fit our purposes during the current exercise of constitutional review. On this score, it must be borne in mind that the fight against corruption is multifaceted. First, the law always appears to be a step behind criminal innovation, and as technological advancement ushers in marvels hitherto unknown, perpetrators of corruption devise sophisticated ways adapted to avoid detection. Second, truth is always the first casualty in any criminal inquiry. Those who engage in grand corruption are wealthy. They possess the means and wherewithal to mount formidable campaigns of misinformation and truth distortion. They also pose a real and present danger to anti-corruption officials through intimidation, open threats, and actual harm, even to the point of killing. After all, I would like to say, wealth equals protection, and power is immunity from scrutiny. Third, corrupt activities are the most difficult to prove, as they are carried out in stealth, and the state of mind accompanying such acts are often well-tied, shrouded, and unregulated by clear criminal constructs. Fourth, corruption prevention is preferable to after-the-fact models of fighting corruption. It is more productive and cost-effective. Better to prevent the outbreak of a stitch than to seek to sow it after it ensues. These pragmatic considerations should guide our plans on this architecture. The focus should be on a system which will stand the test of time, Your Excellency. With this in mind, that while no anti-corruption system is fail-safe, ours should be reasonably able to withstand attack. On this reckoning, we should highlight lifestyle audit non-conviction-based asset recovery. Global anti-corruption best practices indicate that broad-based lifestyle audit, non-conviction-based asset recovery, presents the fairest and optimal method of frontally addressing corruption and unexplained wealth in both public and private contexts, though it is not without controversy. However, it is gratifying to note the receptiveness of our jurisprudence of lifestyle audit under Article 2864 of the Constitution. However, it is strictly limited in scope and outlook, as it only applies to certain public officers and only in respect of the asset declaration regime. Then again, there is no prescribed sanction beyond the declaration that property or assets acquired after the initial declaration of assets and which are not reasonably attributable to reasonable sources will be deemed to have been acquired in contravention of the Constitution. Further, this problem is exacerbated by the fact that our criminal anti-corruption provisions in the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, and other enactments look primarily to public officers. Private persons are only implicated if they corrupt or seek to corrupt public officers. Otherwise, private persons are not within the purview of our traditional anti-corruption fight. It is for the above and other considerations that the advent of the OSP regime took the fight against corruption beyond our traditional arena of public life and situated the fight squarely among public officers, politically exposed persons, and persons in the private sector, as reflected in the long title of the Act and copious sections under the Act in the specific context of asset recovery, that is, the third mandate of the OSP, which is to recover and manage the proceeds of corruption and corruption-related offenses in relation to public officers, politically exposed persons, as well as persons in the private sector. However, this mandate is largely in the context of conviction-based proceedings, though the OSP is mandated to exercise limited aspects of civil asset recovery under its declaration of property and income regime. Therefore, Your Excellency, the principle of lifestyle audit non-conviction-based asset recovery should be stamped in the Constitution to encompass public officers, politically exposed persons, and persons in the private sector suspected of having engaged or engaging in corruption and corruption-related activities, on the reckoning that the person must have legitimate sources of income sufficient to justify the interest in any property that that person holds. Therefore, where a person's resources far outstrip his legitimate income, the unexplained portion should be liable to confiscation. This will be a critical tool also to detect fraud and undeclared income for tax purposes. Thus, conviction after criminal proceedings should not be a condition precedent for asset recovery purposes. That is, proceedings on an application for a confiscation order or a restraint order should be civil and not criminal. Then again, the rules of evidence applicable to civil proceedings should apply to confiscation and restraint proceedings, and confiscation orders should have the effect of a judgment of the High Court appealable to the Court of Appeal. In relation to this, there should also be a reverse onus clause of a presumption of corruption tied to lifestyle audit. That is to say, in all proceedings, civil and criminal, there should be a presumption of corruption. One, where a person, whether in public or private life, is in possession of property or resources for which he cannot satisfactorily account for, or pecuniary resources and property disproportionate to his known legitimate sources of income, should be deemed to have been obtained or received through corrupt means. And two, a gift to a public officer by a person who has or seeks to have any dealings with a government or public agency should be deemed to have been given and received corruptly as an inducement or reward. Further, there should be a more robust and effective asset declaration mechanism in respect of public officers and persons undergoing lifestyle audit to close the loop on the amassing of illicit wealth and to enhance accountability. We should move beyond mere repositories to a system of verification and tracing undeclared assets. However, and I'm coming to disappoint some of you, I do not, and I will not add my voice to calls for the publication of assets for public scrutiny. In our experience, it will be unhelpful and would merely subject public officers to inordinate public curiosity and the specter of the real likelihood of reprisals against their assets. In my estimation, a publication of who has declared or has not declared his assets in the context of a workable asset verification and tracing model would be sufficient to assure the integrity of the asset declaration system. On another score, I dare say, corruption begins where values collapse. That is why integrity must be designed into our educational system, from the basic level through to the tertiary level. And I'm looking at students. A student who regards a corrupt businessman as his or her role model would invariably emulate him without remorse. Do not do so. Thank you. A society in which the youth adore and celebrate ill wealth would only reap, get rich, corrupt, and fraudulent practices. I cannot state all that is on my mind on our accountability journey at this stage, Your Excellency, except to say that we must strive to change the narrative and fashion our own course and course by keeping the glimmer on the horizon glowing until the light beckons closer and shines overhead in a just and prosperous trajectory. Let me try and add my own version to the old Negro spiritual I alluded to when I began. Remember, I said it goes, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, sometimes it's down to the ground. I want to re-sing it. Sometimes it's up, Sometimes it's down, and even when it's down, we shall keep the lights up. Thank you.
Thank you. He was just telling me I'm on the wanted list. I also want you to know that I have a team of lawyers. I'm sure Samson is ever ready to join the team, yes. Oliver, are you joining my team or no more arrests? My Honorable Regional Minister is also here. He's my #1 lawyer. Honorable Charles Luanga Pozwin, please give us a wave. Justice, do I have the honor of having you join my legal team? Okay, that was a good dodge. Thank you so much. We also have the honor of the presence of the Chief of Staff.
You're still watching Joy News Desk, and we're expecting the Vice President to speak at the Anti-Corruption Conference, and once she starts speaking, we'll bring you that. But the OSP just gone by with that speech. It'll be a good time to bring you this story. A global manhunt is now underway for former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Interpol has officially published his name on its red notice list, declaring him wanted for, quote, using public office for profit, end quote. And this follows the special prosecutor's move to trigger international processes to pursue him across borders. There's more in the following report.
Now on Interpol's global radar, former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is officially listed as a 65-year-old Ghanaian born in Accra, 1.7 meters tall, with black eyes and hair, and speaks English and Twi. He served as Finance Minister from 2017 to early 2024, but is now facing criminal investigations linked to the controversial National Cathedral project, revenue deal with Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, the Ministry of Health contract for 307 ambulances, handling and disbursement of tax funds accounts, as well as the cancellation of ECG's agreement with Beijing PXC. He was first summoned by the special prosecutor in January, but after multiple no-shows and citing medical excuses, the OSP declared him a fugitive from justice in February. He later promised to return in May, but never did.
I triggered processes for the issuance of an Interpol Red Notice for the location and provisional arrest of Mr. Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta in whichever jurisdiction pending extradition or his surrender. Around the same time, I dispatched a request for extradition processes to be instituted for the provisional apprehension in any jurisdiction in which Mr. Ofori-Atta may be located or found, and his extradition to the Republic of Ghana.
The Interpol notice, though not a direct arrest warrant, alerts 196 countries, including the United States, where he is believed to be. It paved the way for coordinated tracking and extradition efforts. For now, Ken Ofori-Atta remains on the run, but the special prosecutor says this pursuit will not stop until he is brought back to face justice.
Now let's get more on this. My colleague Elton Brobe joins me with more. Elton, so we know that the red alert is up, but what does it say?
Please allow me to refer.
Elton, can you hear me?
Website. Yes, I can hear you.
Right.
Right. So according to what we see on the Interpol Red Alert list, it says this is a request to law enforcement worldwide to locate and provisionally arrest a person pending extradition, surrender, or similar legal action. Red notice, according to them, is not an international arrest warrant. And what we have on the website of Interpol,
now
it
on
comes with a picture
Interpol's
of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, and then his full name, Kenneth Nanaya, gender male, date of birth, 7th November 1959, 65 years old, place of birth Accra, nationality Ghanaian, and characteristics not available. But it also talks about his hair, color of hair, and color of eyes. So this is what it is on the official website of Interpol.
Right. And up to now, we have not heard anything from his lawyers.
Not yet. I mean, this was released last night. So maybe within the day, they may give a response to it. But as Interpol explains on their own website, the red notice is not an international arrest warrant. It says that the individuals are wanted by the requesting member country or international tribunal. Member countries apply their own laws in deciding whether to arrest this person or not. And they say that the majority of red notices are restricted to law enforcement use only. And this is what they have put together on their own website.
Thank you so much, Elton, for bringing us clarity on that red notice. Now, we're taking you live back to the Accra International Conference Center, where the Vice President is addressing the Anti-Corruption Conference.
Prosecutor in 2017. Our engagement with the AU-ABC review process exemplifies our commitment to continental accountability standards, which we take very, very seriously. And our commitment to this inclusive approach is evident in our support for investigative journalism, civil society advocacy, and the creation of platforms for citizen engagement in anti-corruption efforts. We need to confront the hard truths. However, despite our strong institutional framework, Ghana's performance on key corruption indicators has stagnated and in some cases declined. This is according to the data from the 2024 Corruption Perception Index, the Ibrahim Index of African Governance, and our own 2022 Ghana Statistical Service Corruption Report, which revealed that nearly 5 billion Ghana cedis was lost to bribery alone in 1 year. This cannot be funny. The IMF's assessment that our control of corruption has deteriorated over the last decade, despite outperforming many sub-Saharan peers in other governance aspects, underscores the urgency of our revitalization efforts. And this is where leadership comes in. Let us consider the commitment of the Mahama administration. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has demonstrated his commitment to revitalizing Ghana's anti-corruption architecture. Operation Recover All Loot, or ORAL, is an effort to send a clear message that corruption will not be tolerated. The launch of a comprehensive code of conduct for all presidential appointees establishes clear ethical standards from the highest levels of government. His commitment to reviewing the 1992 Constitution to make it fit for purpose to meet our current governance challenges is yet another demonstration of the President's commitment to fight against corruption. The appointment of a presidential advisor on the National Anti-Corruption Program, the first of its kind since 1992, represents a strategic approach to coordinating our efforts. This office has identified 5 key areas that will anchor our revitalization efforts, including cooperating between anti-corruption agencies, partnerships with the state interests, and governance authority to ensure integrity, provide assurance of domestic and international communities, proposing legislative and policy reforms, and supporting the Attorney General's office in receiving and processing corruption complaints. So what is the path forward? Revitalizing Ghana's anti-corruption architecture requires bold actions across multiple fronts. We must legislate and revitalize unexplained world orders, extending the application to both public officials and private citizens, while anchoring the principle of reverse burden of proof in our Constitution. The revised Conduct of Public Officers Bill will onboard the views of CSOs, anti-corruption institutions, the media, academia, the international community, and all relevant stakeholders to ensure that this bill stands the test of time. The bill will be open to a comprehensive engagement by all stakeholders, and its content and passage will once again demonstrate our commitment to accountability and the fight against corruption. Definitely, you talked about the asset declaration, and I agree with the major points you have made. We must ensure also that we have sustainable financing for anti-corruption institutions to reduce their influence and also to enhance their independence. The financing of political parties and national elections must be regulated through comprehensive legislation that addresses both internal party leadership selection and national campaign funding. We need to engage our citizens. No anti-corruption architecture can succeed without active citizen engagement. Civil society organizations, investigative journalists, and ordinary citizens will be the partners in this fight. The Right to Information Act has empowered citizens to demand transparency, but we must do more to educate all of us about our rights and provide accessible channels for reporting corruption. And youth engagement, where are the youth? Are they here? Your voices are too low. I'm happy to see you here. Your engagement is particularly crucial. Young Africans represent our continent's greatest asset. You are the asset. Your digital nativity offers opportunities to leverage technology for transparency and accountability. We must create platforms for meaningful youth participation in anti-corruption efforts, recognizing that you will inherit the systems we build today. I believe you heard me. Thank you. The economic case for fighting corruption has never been clearer, as Africa requires an estimated $2.8 trillion in financing to meet climate adaptation needs. Every dollar lost to corruption represents a missed opportunity. Ghana's economic recovery and long-term prosperity depend on our ability to demonstrate that we are reliable stewards of public resources. International investors, development partners, and our own citizens need the confidence that their contributions will be used effectively and transparently. So, looking ahead, as we revitalize our anti-corruption architecture, Ghana has the opportunity to reclaim its position as a continental leader in accountability reforms. Our early participation in the AU-ABC review process, combined with our democratic traditions, vibrant civil society, and institutional foundations, provides a strong platform for this leadership. However, leadership requires not just intentions, but measurable results. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude. The theme of revitalizing Africa's anti-corruption architecture acknowledges our achievements and shortcomings. It recognizes that building integrity systems is not a destination, but a continuous journey requiring constant renewal and adaptation. We must remember that corruption is not inevitable. It is a choice to prioritize personal gain over public good, short-term benefits over long-term development, and narrow interests over national progress. Equally, the fight against corruption is a choice to demand better from our leaders and from ourselves, and to build the Africa our children deserve. Let us recommit ourselves to this fight, to revitalize our institutions, strengthen our laws, empower our citizens, and work together across borders. And I like the across borders, because we know that our borders are artificial, and we need to work together. We need to work across borders to build an Africa that is truly prosperous and peaceful, driven by its own citizens, and guided by the principles of integrity, transparency, and accountability. This is a journey we must continue. We know that together we will succeed. I want to thank you for your kind attention.
The Vice President of Ghana, Professor Nana Akufo-Addo, addressing a conference that is discussing anti-corruption. Earlier, we heard the Special Prosecutor, Kisi Ejabeng, as well, addressing people over there at the conference. We have also just heard the Vice President addressing them as well on the anti-corruption conference happening at the Accra International Conference Center. You're still watching Joy News Desk. You want to stay with us? We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Joy News Desk, the special edition, and a happy Eid-Adha to you. We're bringing you excerpts of the just ended Muslim prayers where the president celebrated with them as well. Take a watch.
For a special initiative taken to rid our communities of the drug menace. The drug menace is wreaking so much havoc to our young people who are the future of our country. And any community that has no concern for the development of its youth is doomed to perdition. These youth are the future of our countries. And for anyone to be irresponsible and take this venture in which we see the destruction of our young people is something that must be of concern for all. The Chief Imam is concerned. And Your Excellency, I know you are also concerned about this. And that's why you chose a minister who has taken this one as his personal commitment, and instructing the IGP to ensure that we go from community to community in order to really combat this menace. Your Excellency, we have informed the Chief Imam about your concern also for the environment, for which you have to join in the World Environment Day. The issue of a call for united action in combating environmental degradation and also the eradication of plastic pollution is something that is warm to our hearts and calls on all of us to be supportive of this effort. But in addition to that, to also adopt environmentally appropriate way of disposing our waste, especially in this festive occasion, when we slaughter. Find a better way of making sure the blood drains away without bringing flies, make sure the entrails are well kept and dark holes so they can be well disposed of without exposing ourselves to the hazards of health that are associated with such celebrations. This goes closely to the call of the President also that we must rid our communities. And Your Excellency, your initiative in ensuring that we plant trees, the Plant Trees initiative, in which you are calling for every single child to plant a tree and to nurture that tree, to save our environment, which we share in common, and to which we share a common responsibility to protect and preserve. Chief Imam is very, very impressed with this approach of yours. Your Excellency, when the GRA visited the Chief Imam at his residence, and they educated him to understand what the payment of tax means, the development of our country. Since then, it has become his personal commitment that any group that visited him will make it a point to admonish us against tax evasion. That every responsible Ghanaian embarking upon any commercial activity must make it a point that we pay our taxes. He says that our failure to pay our taxes impoverishes us and makes us go a begging with cup in hand, and when we are given, other values are imposed on us, even though it doesn't go with our cultural traditions. Family values are something that the Chief Imam, Your Excellency, wants us to consider, and so the LGBT bill is something that the Chief Imam says he wants to see, is there anything that we can do to make sure that this bill is passed into law. Finally, the very virtues, time-honored virtues and values and gestures that has held communities together across civilizations and dispensations include sacrifice, sincerity, love for each other, sympathy, compassion for the less fortunate of society, care and sensitivity to the needs of the less fortunate of society, sincerity and genuine devotion to nation. And I want to underscore this, sincerity and genuine devotion to nation, particularly Your Excellency at this time when you are resetting this country, and you alone will not be able to do it if we don't back you in this effort. And Chief Imam calls on all of us, regardless of party affiliation, tribal affiliation, religious affiliation, to be behind His Excellency, your effort. So, if you even have to leave us office one day, then we know you will leave a legacy for which we will remember you across the times when you will live on this earth. Finally, thankfulness to God, and we are aware that you have earmarked the 1st of July to be a day of memory, a day of thanksgiving and prayer. And we want to say that on this occasion, we will take advantage of that occasion to promote social cohesion, national unity that will bring us together in our efforts to ensure that Ghana becomes a prosperous country and a peaceful country. Your Excellency, this is the message of the Chief Imam, and thank you so much.
That'll be all for Joy News Desk. But you want to stay with us at midday for Joy News to bring you more, and especially as well what the President said at the prayers. Do stay with us. We are your home of independence, fearless, and credible journalism. My name is Emefa Akosia Adeti.